If you're in need of sponsorship or you're willing to sponsor, please put your contact information in the chat. We encourage you to leave your cameras on so the speaker will have someone to speak to during the meeting. If you're going to be engaged in other activities during the meeting, please turn your cameras off so as not to distract our speaker. And we thank you for your cooperation. That does it for the readings. It's my pleasure now to introduce our speaker. Comes to us from Cortland, Ohio. Can't wait to hear your experience, strength, and hope. Hearing other people's experiences. That's what I love, speaker meetings. So take it away, David Griggs. We appreciate you being here, showing up.
My name is David Griggs. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, Jeannie, and thanks
Recording in progress.
Reaching out and asking me to be of service. You know, I was sitting here thinking, this time 6 years ago, I was sitting in a Western Regional Jail in Huntington, West Virginia, you know, full of regret and sick from the way that I was living. And but I didn't know that there was another way. I didn't know that there was even the option of a better life, you know. So I sat in there for a couple more weeks, you know, just to sober up enough to go on another run. And here we are today. I've got a sponsor that has a sponsor, and on up the line to Ryan here. And there's some guys on the screen that I've had the privilege to take through the work. And, you know, one of the things that, you know, that we talk about is the link in the chain. And, you know, what is your link like? What is the link before you and what is the link after you? You know, most days my link is very strong, you know, but on the days that it gets a little weakened, I can lean either on the guys that I've took through the work, because it's not like, I really don't like the term sponsor, you know, because we kind of all, when we're in the solution, we all bounce ideas off of each other. You know, I can talk to multiple men and women on this screen, and I'm going to get the same answer. It might be worded different, but it's all going to say the same thing. And I'm grateful for that today. My sobriety date's July 30th, 2018, and it's because of God's grace and not His judgment that I'm here tonight. You know, the way I was living, it got extremely dark, and yeah, thank God and Alcoholics Anonymous that I'm here. If it wasn't for men and women on this screen and you find people, you probably have a different speaker tonight. I had a good childhood. So now I can say I had a good childhood. When I first got sober, I would look at it and say, you know, my parents didn't do this, they didn't do that. But, you know, now I can look at it and say, you know, I had a really good childhood, you know, despite what I thought it was. My parents provided me every option to live a good life, and they provided, they give me good direction, and they gave me these morals, and all this stuff was at my disposal. But I just, today I can look back and see where I suffered from alcoholism from as far back as I can remember. You know, and I'm really not like you. I'm pretty much a late bloomer. Like, I held off as long as I could. I waited till I was like 7 before I had my first drink. Some of you older people might remember the little pony bottles of Miller Lite. It was, if you didn't drink or partake in a couple outside issues, then you was a square where I came from. And, you know, I can remember, you know, my dad and my aunts and uncles and all their cousins, like, always out in this, they had this big field that they partied in. And I wanted what they had. It looked exciting. They looked like they were having so much fun, and I wanted to be a part of that. And I guess I finally got them at just the right time, to where they was like, here, shut up and take this. And I wasn't drinking alcoholically from that time, but what I remember from that time is I remember walking around on the porch, acting ignorant, puking, and laying on the couch with a washcloth over my head. But I couldn't wait to do it again. And I was always running around with the older crowd, the bigger guys in the neighborhood, because I was younger, but I was kind of big from the jump, as far as the guys my age. And I didn't really fit in. So I had already looked up to my aunts and uncles and their cousins. And, you know, like, I wanted to be grown when I was a child. So I did really good in school. I was an honor student up until my freshman year. When I was in middle school, they sent me to Marshall University, and they'd done a whole bunch of tests, these aptitude tests and these IQ tests, and I scored extremely high on that. Don't worry, I'm not bragging. I don't have it anymore. But they wanted me to take this piece of paper back to the school, and I was like seventh grade, and they wanted me to take this and give it to the school to give me more challenging work. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, I don't want to do the little bit of work I'm already doing. I'm not going to do anything extra. And, that was the thing throughout my life. Like, I was always like a just enough guy. I would do just enough to get the girl, just enough to get the job, whatever the case may be. And come to find out through working steps that, that laziness is one of my character defects. I'm not going to say it was, because it's still there. So the summer going from middle school to high school, by this time, me and a few of the neighborhood kids were getting a little pint of Jim Beam and going across the street from my parents. There was a game room that had pool tables and jukebox and the old penny poker machine with the fruit bells and cherries, and we would chase the little neighborhood females that was just as fast as we was. And, like, life was good at this time. There might be an occasional fist fight, a little busted lip or nothing, but, like, nobody was really getting hurt. It was just normal kid stuff. But that progressed, and I started finding these other things, and, I found this leafy thing that, like, made me laugh a lot and eat a lot. And I quit eating the bare minimum of school. I went from being an honor student to barely passing the 9th grade. And that was just what happened all throughout high school. Like, by this time, like, it would be Friday and Saturday night, and, we would get together and come up with some money and get enough alcohol and whatever else to get us through the weekend. And then all week long, was looking forward to the weekend. And, then like I said, there was other things that started coming into the picture, and, out of respect for alcoholics and a primary purpose, I won't go into that. But, there was other things, and believe it or not, like, I was kind of a self-trained doctor, and if I had an ailment, I could prescribe whatever I needed to fix that. So I thought, and I'm barely showing up to school because at this time, I started working at KFC when I was 16, and they wanted me to take these foreign languages and this computer class, and I'm bringing home like $200 a week in the mid-90s, and I'm like, I don't need any of that stuff. I'm pretty much like Pablo Escobar at this point. Like, I've got it made. They come to find out, like, these things I would all need later on in life, but I couldn't see it because of the way I was living. I tore all the ligaments my senior year, like drunk sleigh riding. So I had to go to school on crutches for like 3 months and a cast up to my left knee. And, like, I would go to school basically just to sober up. And I did so good that tour that they invited me back for another senior year. I thought it was a big deal. I barely graduated, but, like I said, my parents, they told me what was going to happen. They told me, if you do this, this is the next step. So obviously I didn't listen because I'm sitting here tonight, but, like, they told me all these things, and they told me what was going to happen, but I just couldn't. My pride and ego told me it won't happen to me. I'm not weak like you all. I'm somehow different. So I graduate high school, and I'm an opportunist. So I see that there's these kids that I was in school with that had a lot of money, that wanted these other things, and just so happened I knew where to get it, and, like, I would take these road trips. The law enforcement might call it interstate trafficking, but we won't get into that. So I would just look for the easier software. I would work, but I would work a meaningless job for barely any pay, just to make it look like that's where I get my money from. But I'm getting in the car and I'm making these road trips and taking these penitentiary chances. And I thought that I had arrived. You know, I was in the clubs at all hours of the night, 7 days a week. By this time, you know, I met a woman, you know, and I fell in love with her, and we had a child and got married, and all of these things look really good on paper, but, you know, like, I'm married and I have a kid and we have a house and a white picket fence and all that, but I'm leaving her at home to take care of the kids so I can go out and do what I want to do, because come to find out, you know, I'm so selfish that I want to look like I'm a good father and I'm a good husband, but that's just not the case. You know, today I can look back and I can honestly say that I wasn't, even though I wanted to be, but the things that I was doing would allow me to be that. I come home one day from work to a note in my recliner. You know, my first wife had took the kids and left, and said, you know, when you drink and whatever else, you know, you're not a very nice guy, and we're not going to be a part of it. And, you know, the book talks about the hard drinker and the moderate drinker and all this stuff. You know, give us sufficient reason, you know, ill health, relationship, whatever, like, they could stop. You know, I could not stop. Be honest with you, you know, I was happy that they left, because now I can drink how I want to drink. You know, and it was a very dangerous spot, because now I don't have anybody there to kind of keep me reined in, even though it really didn't work anyways. But like, now I had nobody there to question me. Where are you at? What are you doing? Why ain't you home? Yada yada yada. So throughout my life, you know, like, I was a mama's boy. You know, my mom got up and she worked at a hospital in the laundry department for 31 years, and she got that job because she had got a bill that she couldn't pay, and she went to the hospital and said, I can't pay this. Would you let me work it off? And they allowed her to work it off, and they gave her a job, and she ended up retiring from there. So I come from good people. You know, my dad was disabled. He couldn't work because of a bicycle wreck when he was a kid. His left leg was like 2 inches shorter than his right leg, and he had to wear a build-up shoe. And, you know, my dad never set foot in high school. My mother had to drop out in 11th grade because her family was so poor that she had to get a job. I came from good people. You know, they taught me right things. I just did wrong on my own. And like I said, I was a mama's boy. So the first wife takes the kids and leave, and, you know, it's starting to progress. You know, like I said, out of respect for Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, like, now when I go through it, and, you know, I got a sponsor who took me through it and talk about the physicality. So when I drink, I get thirsty. Not only do I get thirsty, I have been known for my nose to get thirsty, and at the end, my veins was getting thirsty too. That's just where it took me. This is my experience. So I meet another woman. I'm sick, you know, so like, I seen this girl that I was working with. She had gotten in a car wreck, and a light bulb goes off because I know she's about to get a large sum of money. And so I pushed up on her, and, you know, like I said, I do good enough just to get in. And she's like, yeah, I gotta go to the bank. I gotta go to the bank, get this check, get this money. I was like, well, what a coincidence! I got a passenger seat. I will take you. You know, and I took this girl to the bank, and they gave her a large chunk of the money. And, you know, I was like, well, there's really no sense in getting a bank. I've got a safe at my house. Like, you could just put it in there and it's going to be fine. But by the way, I need $1,800, and I'm going to go do this. I can do that twice. I can give you back your money, and everything's going to be fine, you know. But at the end of the day, man, I took advantage of this girl, and, you know, I went through her money, and cheated on her as well. Like, that was another part of me, you know. Like, it wasn't just the alcohol and other things, you know. Like, I was never faithful to any woman I was ever with, and eventually, you know, she leaves too. So now I'm in the second marriage. I had always been there for my daughter, you know, and again, you know, when I first got sober, I would say, like, I was a great father. I coached her basketball team. I would help her with her cheerleading, and I could braid her hair for Saturday morning games and all that. But I was there physically, but I wasn't there in my mind. Like I was always under the influence, always. Um, so at this time, December 30th, 2018, my dad died in my arms. 34 days later, I had to pull the plug on my mother. And like I said, I'm a mama's boy. And this is where, like it starts to get dark. Like I said, I'm a mama's boy. I love her with everything in me. And, I would love to sit here and tell you that I held this woman's hand and brushed her hair until she took her last breath. But that's not what I do to the people I love. I kissed her on the forehead. I don't know what I said because I was under the influence, and I let her die alone by herself, because it's all about me and my feelings. And poor little Dave was hurt. I didn't give a damn about my daughter losing her grandparents 34 days apart. It's about me and me losing my parents. And I that was where like I came unglued completely. I gave up on life. I gave up on my daughter. I just quit coming around. I quit insurance. I quit coming around, and I was living a rough life, surrounded by rough people. Doing things I had no business doing. I lost my house, that I had been paying on for almost 15 years. I moved in my childhood home that my parents had paid off, that my mom had worked so hard for. And, I told you I was an opportunist, that I like to make quick money. And, at the end, there was nothing to be made because it was all supporting, drinking how I wanted to drink. And, that home that my mother worked so hard for, I ended up losing it over $750 in back taxes, $750 in back taxes. I couldn't get my stuff together long enough to come up with $750. So I lost my childhood home, and I'm out on the street, man. And like I said, I'm not going to get into it. Just know if you can do it, I did. And I'm homeless, and I'm living an extremely foul life. Like I said, I'd given up on my daughter. I wasn't speaking to her. She probably was worried to death about me. All these people was worried to death about me, but I'm not hurting anybody. It's me. Because I couldn't see it. I couldn't see the selfishness because it was all over me. I honestly thought that she would be better off without me in her life. I honestly thought that my cousins would be better off without me in their life. Just if everybody would just leave me alone, I'm good. I got this. I know what I'm doing. So I'm unemployable. I'm homeless. Can't draw a sober breath. And I'm racking up these felony charges. And I'm staying in a fifth wheel camper with no electric heat or water. I had to go to the dollar store and steal a deadbolt and install in this camper so nobody would steal my stolen stuff. Like, it was just a terrible life. It was a terrible life. And as I'm saying this, like, now I realize I need to go make amends to Family Dollar because I need to make amends to Family Dollar. So I end up in the hospital with an abscess on my arm due to the way that I was living. I was 175 pounds soaking wet. I might have had 6 teeth combined in my head, a little chip of one here. It was bad. And I'm laying there, and I hadn't showered in God knows how long. I was constantly wearing my cleanest, dirtiest clothes. And I end up in the hospital with this abscess, and nobody's picking up the phone. Nobody's calling back. And, like the reality of what was really happening set in, man, and I was scared to death. I'm laying in a hospital bed, had an IV pole on one arm. They done 2 surgeries in 4 days on my other arm, and they got me filleted open, and I'm laying there. And I called my cousin that I hadn't spoke to in a couple of years because, he was trying to live right. He met a woman, and they got married, and they was going to church, and I didn't want nothing to do with them because they was Bible thumpers, and they didn't want nothing to do with me because of the way I was living. And I called him. I hadn't talked to him in over 2 years, and it didn't take 30 minutes, and he was there. And he came in, and he prayed over me, and something happened. Like, I had a moment of clarity to where my will to live outweighed my will to die for the first time in several years. And the social worker at the hospital said, honey, have you ever thought about trying to get some help? And at first I'm appalled, like, how dare you profile me like that? You know what I mean? Like, I was upset. But I said, yes, ma'am, I need some help. I don't know what to do. I've never attempted this before. And she gave me a stack of applications for these treatment centers. And, you know, had it been up to me, I would have never filled out any one of them, you know. So my cousin's wife got on the phone and she saw some places and got me into a place. And, you know, that's where I met a lot of the fine people in this screen, man. You know, like, people have a low opinion of treatment centers. That's fine. You know, like, I work at one and I have a low opinion of them sometimes. But what I will say is this, not all people are like that. There are some really good people that get a bad rap for a lot of BS that goes on. So I go to this place, and one of the most profound things that they told me was I needed to get a sponsor and I needed to work some steps. So they take us to these meetings, right? So we walk into this space, and like, I think I'm looking good. Like, Matt always laughed at me, you know, like, I thought I had a six-pack. You know, but come to find out when I really got to look at it, it was my ribs. Like, I was that bad, man. Like, I'm a big dude. I'm like 320, 330. And, you know, I dwindled down to 175 pounds, man. And I know when I walked in, they didn't have high hope for me because I was set as far in the back of the room as I can get, mean mugging everybody, judging everybody. But it was a meeting that wasn't, again, it's me being judgmental. It wasn't, there was no solution. And if it wasn't for the Pleasant Valley group, Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't know if I ever would have found a solution then. You know, they're like, there's this meeting across the prison, but you don't really want to go there, man. It's old timers, and they got these books, and they can tell if you're worth steps. So me, I'm like, ain't no way. They don't know. So finally, these guys was coming from that group over to these meetings. And when they talked, they spoke differently. It wasn't about the problems. They spoke differently, and it was attractive. And they had vehicles, and they had clean clothes, and they was laughing and smiling. So I go over to this group now. Like I said, I would have never told you then because, you know, I'm so mean and I'm so tough, and, you know, I'm full of tattoos, and I was scared to death. You know, I walked in this room. These people laughing, joking, and having a great time, and I would have bet my life they was on something, because there is no way you're this happy sober. Like, you all don't do what I do, how I do it. Impossible. And I was wrong again. You know, like, that's the cool thing about Alcoholics Anonymous. I get to be wrong a lot, even today. So I asked this man to be my sponsor, and he came and got me, and we went down by the river, and we listened to Chris Raymer's Relapse Prevention, and he had me hook, line, and sinker. I was sitting in a treatment center listening to this, just nodding my head and laughing. And he was like, all right, well, I'll be over, come and get you for the meeting. And then, you know, it's about a 15-minute car ride from a treatment center to the Pleasant Valley group. And he said, listen, brother, when we get there, you go in there and use the bathroom, get you a cup or two of coffee, and just sit down. Just sit down and listen. He said, if you can't sit down for an hour, let me know. I'll set you up a doctor's appointment. There might be a bigger issue at hand. He said, but we know how to drink. If we want to know, we'll ask you. Just sit there and just be quiet. And I said, yes, sir. You know, by this time, like, I didn't know it then, but I was surrendered. They told me to do something, I've done it. Even though I didn't understand it, I really didn't want to do it. I'd done it because whatever it was they was doing was working. And obviously the way I was living got me there. So, you know, I started going and hanging around with these guys. And I remember going to a meeting early on in Jackson, Ohio, and a van full of the females pulled up, and I didn't say a word. They pulled up, and I looked over at Alice and said, I was like, yes, ma'am. But I'm glad that I had these people in my life, because, like, I seen these other guys that was chasing the women, that was chasing the job. We was talking about before the meeting, you know, like, all these things, you know, I was told that if I put anything in front of my sobriety, I will lose it. Women, job, kids, it didn't matter. Stan told me it's God, AA, and family. I'm like, nope. He said, yeah, it's God, AA, and family. I was like, nah, man, I don't put nothing in front of my kids. He said, oh, you didn't put alcohol in front of your kids, did you? So I'm going to tell you again, it's God, AA, and family. Without God, you won't have AA. Without AA, you won't have the kids you claim you love. And I'm like, damn. Since you put it like that, and I started hanging out with these guys, man. They got me busy, and you know, we talked about this on the Monday night meeting. Like one of the biggest spiritual experiences I had was doing the Thursday Night Prayer in that basement. You know, it was powerful. You know, like it was a game changer for me. And then you know, we've done what the book told us to do. You know, he didn't say, you know, just keep coming back and take your time, and it works when you work it. He said, no, get your piece of paper. You're going to start writing on your fourth step. And we done that, man. And I started having fun in sobriety. Which I didn't think was possible. I was so scared because I had never tried to get sober in my life. You know, I was 38 years old, homeless. Everything I owned fit in a duffel bag. And these guys was so, let's go to this conference. Let's go to this workshop. Let's do this. And I said, well, I don't have any money. They said, we didn't ask you if you had any money. We asked you, do you want to go? Matter of fact, I'll be there to pick you up. And, you know, they drug me along to these things. And, you know, like the book talks about to show other people how we could recover, you know, and they showed me. They didn't tell me to go read my book. You know, they showed me and they drug me to these meetings and all this stuff that I really didn't want to do. But, you know, they showed me that there was a better way. One of the first meetings I went to at that place, you know, man, you know, it's funny how you can spot the newcomers, and you're sitting in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous now, you don't ever have to feel the way you're feeling. You don't ever have to drink or whatever else again. And that gave me a little bit of hope, man. For a guy that was hopeless, I needed to hear that. You know, and I try to say that anytime I go to a meeting or anytime I speak, because it meant so much to me. You know, when you're sitting there and you're broken, you know, like, when I came in, you know, Ryan gets a kick at this. I was busted, disgusted, and couldn't be trusted. Like it was just all bad. You know, I joke and say when I came in, I was on step 0. Like I was bad off, man. Scared to death. Like I said, I never told you. So we're doing all this stuff, man, and you know, I get to do 4 and 5, and I get freed up, and it was like it knocked the air out of me, but it allowed me to breathe, you know, and come to find out, you know, I had these things called character defects, and, you know, those were standing in my way of being useful to you guys. And if it wasn't for a sponsor and the solution and a program, like I wouldn't know any of these things. You know, I got out of treatment. I went to sober living, didn't have a driver's license, 10, 12, however many thousands of dollars in debt to child support. And, you know, I got a job, a minimum wage part-time job at Taco Bell. And I would walk 2.5 miles each way to this minimum wage part-time job in January. Snow on the ground, it didn't matter. You know, because I had done what you all asked me to do, man, and I was getting free. And I would walk to work with my earbuds in, listen to my music just to smile, and, you know, and go in and I work with these little kids, you know, they can't roll a burrito, but they can roll a joint, you know, and I'm old enough to be their dad. And, you know, like, but you all taught me to stay small, you know, just show up and do the work. And through that experience, you know, I was given an opportunity to work in the kitchen at a hospital, you know, for full-time hours with a little bit better pay, you know, and have insurance and vacation time. Like I got to get my driver's license back. Which was a big deal, you know. And I remember my first sober car, man. I got the 98 Astro van with like 300-some thousand miles on it, and on credit for $300. Man, I would roll hot in that thing, man. Going picking up guys and going to meetings, and I had a CD player with an auxiliary cord, and I could plug it up to my phone. I could listen to music, and I can play leads. And man, it was a POS for sure, but it was mine. And I I was like the used tire king, man. These tires on it was so bad, and I would go to this used tire place, and they're like, "What size you need?" I'm like, "I don't know, a 15." He'd be like, "Well, what's the numbers on?" I said, "Listen, sir, if you've got a 15, I will take it. Just put it on there. Like, I've got stuff to do, man. Let's go." You know, and it was all lopsided, so it was always constantly wearing off. Matt had to bring me a jack a couple times because it went flat outside of the sober house, and the daggone door handle broke. The driver's door handle broke. I had to reach in, unlock it from the passenger side and go around and get in it. Then the passenger door broke, so then I had to slide the door open, climb up in there, and slam it back. But I was free, man, and I was grateful to have that vehicle, and that allowed me to. So, man told me, he said, God's not going to trust you with the franchise until he can trust you with the French fries. And what that meant to me was, if I can't make my bed and take care of this little room in sober living, if I can't take care of this beater of a vehicle, why would God give me a house? Why would he give me a new car if I'm not going to take care of the little bit he gives me? You know, you take care of a little and he'll give you a lot. And that's been my experience since I became Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, that daughter that I claimed I was such a good dad for, by the time I got sober, in July of 18, I hadn't talked to her in 3 years. You know, I was just the poor thing. But when I came crying and snotting into Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, you all told me that if I'd done the work, the chances are that I could rebuild that relationship. But even if I didn't, if I was unable to rebuild that relationship, I didn't have to drink or whatever else about it anymore, man. And I needed to hear that too. And the cool thing about that was, man, I'd done the work, and it took 2.5 years into sobriety. She reached out to me, you know, and we got to rebuild that relationship. Not only that, Matt and Vanessa got married, and I got to take my daughter as my +1 to their wedding. All of us are standing outside of this wedding, crying and snotting because I got to be a father again. Not only that, you know, not only that do I get to be a father again, but in December, my birthday is December 13th. I got a call December 12th. You know, my daughter was pregnant. You know, I got to drive 4.5 hours to Huntington, West Virginia, and sit in the waiting room with my daughter while I wasn't in there with her, but I was in the waiting room while she was back there waiting to have this baby. And they thought he was going to be born on my birthday, but my first grandchild was. Cool thing about that is her mom was the very first amends I tried to make, and she laid me out. You know, she was like, "Oh, you missed all these homecomings, prom, sweet 16, on and on and on." She said, "You know that she's insulin dependent and needs it to live, and you couldn't help with her medicine, but you make sure to keep what you need." And she said some colorful words to me and told me to leave her alone until I had a couple of years of sobriety. And for the first time in my life, I didn't call her out of her name or call her any colorful words. And I said, "Yes, ma'am." You know, so while our daughter was in the hospital having this baby, in the middle of the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he puts me and my first wife in this waiting room. Like, there had been like 10, 15 people there, all hours, all day, all night, sleeping and everything. And God put just me and her there for about 40 minutes. And I got to make a proper amends to her. And there was tears shed. And like, we don't have each other's phone number. We're not Facebook friends. But as of today, she doesn't want to put pause on me, and I don't want to put pause on her. So that's a huge step from where it was, you know, 6 years ago, or even, you know, a year ago. You know, she hated me, and she had every right to feel that way because I've done a lot of dirty things to her. So yeah, I've got to rebuild that relationship with my daughter. I get to be a grandfather. You know, I get to go to these conferences and workshops, and because God and AA has given me a life that I never would have dreamed of. You know, I'm from a little city in West Virginia, Huntington, West Virginia. You know, and like, I only knew that there was a small portion of the world. I only thought that you can hustle or work a meaningless job to make money. Like, I didn't know that all of this was available. You know, I didn't know that you could live life sober and happy without being under the influence of something. And it's only because of you all told me that and showed me that, you know, by what you was doing, not what you was saying. You know, I was told to watch people's feet, make sure their feet match their mouth. And, you know, I just was blessed to be introduced to a group of people carrying the books that was in the solution that didn't care about my problems. They cared more about me getting better than hurting my feelings. Not that they was purposely hurting my feelings, but they would tell me the truth, and I needed the truth. I didn't need somebody just to pat me on the butt and say, "Oh, Dave, it's gonna be okay." I didn't need that. You know, people had done me that they done me that way my whole life, and the type of person I was, I would take advantage of it. You know, so. You know, I get to be a father, a grandfather. I get to go on these cool experiences. Just had a great experience at Founders Day. The cool thing was, man, like we was at the Gatehouse, and you know the room where Bill met Bob, and like it was just so powerful. Last year there, you know, I got to watch Ryan get his 14-year coin, and we're standing there crying. And this year, you know, we're going through there, and like it was just so much. It was just so overwhelming, like. Because they met in that room, the ripple effect of that was somebody carrying a message to Ryan, which trickled down to me, and there was 4 guys there with us at Founders Day that I got to take to the work, man. Like it's just, when they say it's indescribably wonderful, I know today what that means because I don't have the words, you know, and if you've been there and you've had these spiritual experience, you know exactly what I'm saying. You know, there's no words that could describe it. Got to go last weekend and co-chair and speak on a panel at 11-step workshop. Like, I don't like getting up. I don't care enough about you all prior to coming to this to do any of this. You know, I'm not going to sit up and tell you all my life story. I'm not going to get honest and tell you my deepest, darkest secrets. I wouldn't do that. But it was funny, you know, like Allison was like, when it was first time to speak, she's like, "Well, you get to get up there and talk about your favorite person, you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I do. I'm like Terrell Owens. I love me some me, you know." But today is the difference is, you know, I love you all too, and I care about other people, and I get to have genuine relationships with no conditions. You know, I get to do things for other people that was done for me. Alcoholics Anonymous is the greatest show on earth. So I want to tell you, you know, there is a better way. You know, if you're new on the screen, or if you have 10 or 15 years and your forest fire dry and you would rather blow your brains out than take a drink, there is a different way. You know, you can have a different experience. You can live a better life. There's more than what you know about. There is hope found here. Find somebody that's got a book and a stupid smile on their face for no reason. Ask them if they've had a spiritual experience from working the steps. If they have to question it, get away from them. If they just start smiling, that's your person. Again, thank you all for asking me to be here. You know, 6 years ago, nobody wanted me around, and I'm just grateful that I get to be a part of the greatest show on earth. Love you all.